Colin Flaherty. He's the author of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry and White Girl Bleed a Lot. His work, himself and his work, have been featured on Drudge Report, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, LA Times, and a host of other media channels. Colin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Honored to be here, sir.
Well, hey, Colin, I want to start off with basically the introduction of your work, because when people read the title, you have two very controversial, I guess, or eye-catching titles, especially they Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. I'm sure every white person is just scared to death to even touch that book because they've all been conditioned with, that you can't say that. Let's start off with your work. What is the big lie that people have been told to believe? And then if you could also, let us know who are the leaders of this big lie? Who's pushing this lie?
Well, okay, let me back up even half a step further and tell people that I write about black mob violence and black on white crime all over the country. That's half of it. The other half is I document how the media ignores it, denies it, condones it, excuses it, encourages it, even sometimes lie about it. And so what I do is I don't do a lot of big causes or solutions. I don't do any grand theories. I just go around the country going, this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. And I really document that as opposed to what we hear every day. See, to me, like the most common story that we read in the newspapers every day is some variation of this, which is black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. Especially why police are always picking on black people for no reason whatsoever. So that's like the big story of our time. And I document how that story is false. It's the biggest lie of our lifetime. And, so that's why I wrote Don't Make the Black Kids Angry.
And who's pushing this lie?
Who the hell knows? We may not be not sure. We may not be sure who's pushing it, but we darn sure know there's something really, really wrong going on in this country right now.
Now, with the black violence, one of the things I suspect you'll hear from the African American community or liberal left is that black people are portrayed as the bad guy in the nightly news, or portrayed as the bad guy in a movie, for example. But what your research is showing you is that a lot of the black crimes out there are almost being covered up or underreported or not reported.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear when you just said, like, when you kind of capsulize that the criticism, what people would say, in real life, people don't even have the nerve to say that anymore because they'll know that over the last 2 years. I mean, how many movies have there been about this relentless black victimization at the hands of white racism? How many dozens? Between the 12 Years a Slave, Django Unchained, The Butler, the whole thing, right? So it's kind of amazing. People are kind of losing their steam to even try to deny that there's something going on. Well, I forget where I read it this morning. I mean, I read what you just said this morning as a serious critique that black people are portrayed in the media and they're over-reporting. Just the opposite is happening. There's an enormous amount of crime, black mob violence, black on white crime. And where the central organizing feature of the violence is that the people involved are black. And they're involved in a large, long pattern of this kind of mayhem. But the same papers who every day do all these stories about black colleges, black TV, black radio, black newspapers, on and on and on. When you look at them and say, what about that black crime? It's wildly out of proportion. They look at me and they say, Colin, we're colorblind. So there's a lot of craziness on this.
Yeah, they are obsessed with race, some of these people, especially the people in the media and on the left. When it comes to your work, I imagine it's been received well with people who think and would like at least a fair reporting of the news. But how has your work been received by black leaders or liberals? I imagine you're probably being called a racist, right?
Yeah. Thomas Sowell Of course, of course, his definition of a racist: any conservative winning an argument with a liberal. And so, he's written 3 columns about my book. So so here's the overwhelming reaction to the book. You guys write a lot about this too. So maybe you're experiencing the same thing. The overwhelming feeling is relief. It's like, oh, finally, somebody's telling the truth about this. So many people, they feel like they're trapped in this web of deception surrounding everything race, especially violence and crime. So a lot of people see this stuff and they go, man, glad somebody's telling the truth about this.
Well, yeah, it's like, I remember in the 90s, Republicans hated Bill Clinton, just hated him. And then now they hate Obama, but, they can't hate Obama like they hated Clinton because now they're just labeled as redneck racists. And it seems like a lot of the white community, and of course this is generalizing hundreds of millions of people, but it seems like a lot of the suburban type white community people have moved beyond racism and they've completely let go whatever those lines were. And I guess there's almost a disconnect because here they are completely disconnected from racism, yet the news keeps throwing it in our faces that we are racist, that we are hurting the black community, that are, we're anti-Obama because we're racist. And I think you're right. There is a sense of release for people who are watching and reading your work. Now, have you had anything? Have you had any death threats or anything? Because I know a lot of this stuff does not go well.
I get them every day. Now I'm getting to the point where I just say, hey, I get them on my YouTube channel. If I see them, I just laugh at them. I'll say, listen, you guys keep promising to do that, but you never do it. What's up with that? But you talk about that white suburbia crowd, the crowd that thinks they're beyond race. Here's what they absolutely do not know. They don't know that how Obama, from Obama down to the Little League mom in Chicago who blamed her son getting kicked out of the Little League on racism, they don't know how much this crowd really sees the world through the lens of race. To them, it's all about race. And so they're sitting there going, they'll see this, they'll kind of see in the paper or hear about this epidemic level of black violence and crime, and they look at me and they say, Colin, we don't, we think crime is crime and we don't care what color it is. Well, they're kind of fooling themselves. Because when Stephanie Rawlings, the mayor of Baltimore, when she looks on the streets of Baltimore and sees thousands of people marching down the street, many of whom are looting, setting cars on fire, beating people up, hurting people, when she looks at them, she doesn't see criminals. She sees victims of white racism. And if there's one thing anybody who takes away from my books, I want them to do is take that away, because I really document how this racial resentment and racial hostility is now mainstream. And tell you what, where you find it? You find it in grade schools now.
Have you given it thought? I know your job is as a reporter. You're reporting something, so you don't have to come up with the solution or an answer, but let me ask you this. Have you given it any thought on why we're seeing the black mob violence where they go into malls or rioting, protests turn to riots? Have you given any thought on why they're doing this, and you're not seeing the larger populations in either the Hispanic community or the white community? They're not really doing this, but the black.
Don't forget the Asians.
And the Asians, who always get left. They even got left out of affirmative action. So, have you given any thought? Why are they doing this? I mean, there's got to be a reason. So, the black answer would be that they're victims of hundreds of years of crimes against their race. Why do you suspect that they are susceptible to this violent attitude on life?
Well, I hate to go down the rabbit hole and break my own rule, but I'll do that. But okay, so just a couple of days ago, what did Michelle Obama tell the graduates at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama? She told them they were victims of relentless racism. They were victims of relentless racism from white racists all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. So this is like the president saying this, the attorney general saying, everybody's saying The mayors are saying, forget the community activists. I mean, this racial resentment and hostility is now the mother's milk of so many people involved in politics and education. I'm just telling you, there's so many, these kids are getting this message of constant racial resentment and hostility all the time. I mean, no wonder they're so pissed off at stuff.
Yeah, and
part of my bad language.
Just in the last month, can you cite to our subscribers and members of any big stories that you think were just kind of buried or underreported or not reported at all? That if it would have been, let's say, a group of whites, which would show racism, if they would report whites doing it, but they're not reporting blacks doing it, that is racism. So, any stories that we're probably not even familiar with?
Oh, good Lord. You know, I have a YouTube channel. That's all I do on my YouTube channel. These are recent ones, right? And so just lots and lots of stuff at places like McDonald's, lots of attacks on cops. There's lots of stuff going on where the central organizing feature of the violence is race. There's lots of threats on cops. See, I'm trying to remember. I'm actually on the road now, so I haven't been in front of my computer working on this for a couple of days. So there's so much. I kind of forgot the last couple of ones I put up there. Mm-hmm. But there's just, in the book, White Girl Bleed a Lot, I document over it. And Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. I document over 1,000 of these things, many on video, all with links. And, it's just, here's the thing. So 2 years ago, the big explanation for all this stuff was, poverty, fatherlessness, motherlessness, sisterlessness, school, church, whatever. Whatever your favorite explanation was, that's what it was. But I've noticed now that all those explanations / excuses, they're off the table. The big thing now is it's all about racism. It's all about white racism. That's the only excuse for anything. Michelle Obama, where was she just the other day? She was at in Kansas. They have a museum dedicated to Brown versus the Board of Education, and there she is standing under a sign. She and a white guide are standing underneath the sign. Did you see this picture?
I just saw it, actually. I just saw it, yeah.
See, so, white and colored bathrooms. And here's the thing, and somebody else pointed this out, but when the First Lady gave that speech at Tuskegee, or when she was at this institute in Kansas, this is the White House photographer taking these pictures, putting them on the wire, spreading the word. So it's almost like for the last, I think they've kind of decided for the last 19, 20 months of their term, they're going to let Michelle be Michelle, because she's all about racial resentment all the time right now. It does an enormous amount of damage. I don't know how anybody could deny that.
Yeah, and the media with the Trayvon Martin thing, calling Zimmerman white and of course showing this like 12-year-old boy little picture of Trayvon, and then with the recent thing, Michael Brown, everybody, even the media, CNN, I think it's on your YouTube page or maybe your website, where the reporters actually having their hands up. This kind of stuff and these kind of lies being supported and advocated by the liberals or by the media. One problem I see is, and maybe you have the same observation, but the millennials, the 18 to 35-year-old age category, they seem to mimic whatever they're almost like parrots of the liberal media. And I don't know if it's because of what they're getting in their schools or colleges, but I notice they all think the same. They don't think independently. They don't think. They're just kind of a bunch of parrots. So once somebody says something's racist, they actually believe it. And I was wondering if your observation is the same, that a lot of the younger generation just follows the media's script right to the line.
I'd like to see somebody do a poll on that, because I know exactly what you're talking about. But I've also seen kids in that same generation look at this. Maybe the kids who were victims of affirmative action that couldn't get into the college that they wanted, and they're looking at this and going, "This isn't fair." And this isn't fair. So I see a lot of these kids getting it. And here's not just them. I see people all over the country getting it. There's so much video, so many victims, so many witnesses, so many 911 calls. Everybody's reading this story in the paper about black people are victims of white racism, But then, then they see an incident of violence and crime, and they're really a milquetoast vanilla account. Then they go to YouTube and they see what really happened, and they go, are they really, talking about the same thing? And so the newspapers are really, really in retreat on this whole topic of violence. And a lot of people are demanding better information. And you know what? You guys are right in the front of that. So I congratulate you for that.
When you say out apportioned black violence against whites, what do you have some hard numbers you can share with us?
Oh, I remember when I wrote White Girl Bleed a Lot, my publisher said, "Can we put some numbers in there?" I said, "Why? The numbers are ridiculous. The black versus white crime is 6, 8, 10, 50, 100 times different. I mean, do we really have to repeat that?" And he said, "Well, okay. Well, it turns out we should have, because I'm astonished at the number of people, including Rand Paul, who will come out and say black people and white people commit the same amount of crime, but white people are just arrested. Black people are arrested more often for the same crime, which is an unbelievable lie." And so, I mean, here's the thing about these crime statistics. I have a big chapter in my book. I go around, kind of do a magical mystery tour around the country, and I show how they cook the books on crime. This has been a big story in Chicago for a year now. How they're constantly taking felonies, making them misdemeanors. Same in Baltimore, New York. In New York, front page New York Times, the people are going, "Hey, I can't, nobody. It's hard to get arrested in this town." I mean, people are committing crime. I did a story in Baltimore about an old Jewish guy leaves his home, is going to his nearby synagogue. A black woman attacks him, beats the hell out of him in front of 20 people. Cops roll in. The people that saw it go, "Oh yeah, she did it. I'll testify to that." They go to the guy. "She did it. I'll press charges." They go to the person who attacked him. She goes, "Yeah, I beat him up. I was having a bad day." They didn't arrest her.
Wow.
And so the crime numbers are so out of whack now. It's kind of like the saying about bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they cover up the most interesting parts. And, but that's kind of like the last refuge of all the reporters, right? They look at me and they say, "Colin, kind of in sorrow, you just don't know the crime's going down and this and that." For certain places, like the places, maybe in Brooklyn where the gentrification crowd is, wherever there's white people moving into black neighborhoods and during the gentrification thing, there is relentless crime, violence, trash, harassment, vandalism. Then they go to the cops and they go, "Hey, what's up with this neighborhood? I thought we were the good guys." And they go, "No, you got to share the neighborhood with the people who were here before. So get the hell out of here." It's amazing.
Colin, where's the best place for people to go to learn more about you or buy your books?
Easiest place to get my book is at they're carried in the finest bookstores everywhere, but the easiest place, of course, is Amazon. And I do a lot of, I got to start doing stuff for you guys some. I do a lot of stuff for American Thinker, Front Page Mag, but there's so much material out there. But if you really want to get like an up-to-date thing of what's happening, my Facebook page, and especially my YouTube page, good Lord, there's so much stuff on there.
All right, well, we'll be following you closely. Best of luck to you. I mean, you're just one guy trying to report what should be reported as normal stuff, being fair in both sides. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your work, and you have a great day, sir.